Hi, I'm Paul Bowman, CEO at Wexer, the digital fitness specialist who deliver over 25 million fitness experiences per year for our partners worldwide. Welcome to the Wexer podcast, where I'll be speaking to industry experts to bring you insights and advice to support your business journeys. In today's episode, I'll be chatting with Eric. I don't even want to butcher your last name. Your last name?
Let's go with Falardeau. Falardeau will work.
Falardeau, okay, there you go. I thought I wouldn't even attempt. Who is a partner at McKinsey Company. A lot of people know you, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thanks.
Good, thank you for joining. I guess actually the question that I'd like to start with the first, because I think this will be intriguing for people, is I always do the question of did fitness find you or did you find fitness? But I guess how did you end up getting the bug of being involved in the fitness industry so much?
I think it's twofold. The first one is personal. Growing up, the idea of moving, not so much of gyms, but the idea of moving sports has always been a huge passion, huge part of my life. And when it then comes to work, the business side of it is the bug that poked me. So there were two things in particular. Number one, the fundamental belief that there's continued opportunity to keep innovating as a sector and solve human needs. And secondly, the purpose and the passion that everybody in the companies that I was meeting were bringing to work, which is, I think, the most motivating thing as a helper, right? As somebody who's trying to help. So those combination of those two things is what brought me to this.
And how, maybe for listeners, what is your role at McKinsey? Like, just to give us a little bit of an insight into your day-to-day, because it's not just fitness that you're analyzing, so you can bring a lot of knowledge from other industries, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been at McKinsey for 10 years now. I'm a partner living in Montreal. In our broader consumer practice, and really for me, my real passion is for the human brain. So whichever categories have real emotional attachment for consumers, where they're actually really making choices that matter to them, is when I get very excited. I used to study sciences, so problem solving I like, but it's the human brain that brought me to business. I'm like, hey, we know a little bit less about this. So obviously fitness and wellness is a fantastic example of this. I also serve clients in the world of toys, in the world of cooking appliances, in the world of premium retail experiences, in the world of pets, many different sectors that matter a lot to people.
And how does that work? Like, do you just divvy up, here's the industries, who's interested, or is it something that you said, hey, look, I want to get to know the fitness industry a little bit more because of my passions, or how did that work?
It happened by coincidence about 7 years ago or so. I had the chance to serve a fitness company on pricing, very much a reactive study, like, hey, it's really difficult, we need to figure out pricing. And fantastic group of folks, got to know the CEO quite a bit. And while doing this, realized there's a lot of people out there helping gym companies. There's a lot of people with previous experience, whether we're old club managers, personal trainers. And I thought that those served we're able to help on quite a few topics. But it felt like there might be a few other topics where we could add to the table in terms of what could we bring to the sector. And so anyways, that's what got me believing, hey, there might be an opportunity to help a little bit. And then from there on, just met a lot of people, had a lot of opportunities to help them in their businesses.
And so from a macro point of view, what's been, I don't know, is there anything that shapes our industry slightly more than other industries, like the people or the way we think, or is there any nuances that we have in your mind compared to other industries, or are we generic in the same?
No, I think all how can I say it? All think they're more unique than they're actually unique, and they
are different. I was trying to ask that question in a way that I'm not trying to put words in your mouth as a unique industry.
Yeah, no. Everybody has that. No, but our business is super different. I think, but in the end, all businesses are different, and all sectors are. Like the few points that come to mind for fitness is number one, and I think everybody sees this, is the need is real, right? Like there's people want to live healthier lives, and it's not easy. So there's this need for innovation and for the hustle and tussle that people bring to work every day is really important. So that's there's no fake need here. There's no creation of a need. The need is very clear. So that's kind of for sure one of them. I think the second one, which is a huge gold mine in the industry, and at the same time sometimes a trap, is the passion people bring for helping their members or their consumers, but also for the category. So that's great for, I mean, what you bring to the table. It can also be a trap sometimes of convincing ourselves of some things that might be solutions which might not yet have been thought through enough. So that's obvious. That's definitely a second one as well. And I think the third one is, while a lot of sectors are competitive, this is a particularly exciting place to innovate and invest, and people want things to work here. So man, is it competitive in some spots. So I do think, like, really thinking through business models and making sure that the lens and the differential is real, is important.
And so the competitive nature from a red ocean, like there's so many different ways to kind of skin the cat, so to speak, in terms of offering fitness outcomes, or the nature of people in our industry.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I missed that.
In terms of the competition statement that you had, like in terms of our industry being very competitive, more from a business point of view, in terms of the, like how many different offerings we have in terms of how to offer fitness outcomes, or more the people, because of course a lot of the people come from sporting backgrounds, and most of the listeners probably had a sporting background, and that's how we ended up falling in love with the fitness industry as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think when I mean competitive is the number of people trying to solve the need, right? Which is, well, both, I guess the passion and what people did in the past, I think, contributes to this energy and desire to find solutions here. But there's, in most cases, the barriers to launching an offering within the world of fitness are not necessarily huge. And people are excited about it and really want to help people. So there's a lot of different businesses out there.
Yeah, we always have a thing of when we're working with clients, is what problem are we solving? Because we feel the exactly same thing, is sometimes they create their own solution, but there's no problem. So you're just creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Do you find that often when working with club operators, or is that becoming less?
Yeah, I think it's more the humility for what is required to actually deliver something that is sufficiently compelling for a human to really change their behaviors.
Sure.
And number two, the humility for, like, how much margin of safety does there have to be in your business model to feel like you've gotten the right angle, right? To create a win-win between your members and your ability to keep getting enough money in to keep innovating for this, right? They can change anytime they want. So it's the need. People are passionate, they're seeing it, but I think that sometimes we can get too excited as a sector and click go without enough of the humility on those two things. It's a difficult challenge. We do it because we love it, but it's tough.
Yeah. Here's it's not actually on the questions I wrote to you, Eric. So I'm going off script already. You were the one that was saying you were going to go off script, but how much is, and just from your insight, like a lot of roundtables and stuff that I'm a part of, is their what do they say? The paradigm of the build it and they will come membership model sometimes stops innovation, because it's fundamentally that's what we got to focus on. We got to focus on membership dues, and therefore I think they struggle to find you're not trying to earn the right every single time someone's joining, like if you're buying a toy, or how you're marketing that value to that customer on a regular basis. Once they're hooked, they're kind of a little bit hooked into a 12-month cycle type thing. So, like, does that come? Do you think that I don't know. Do you think that's a good or bad thing in terms of, I know there are pay as you go models, but fundamentally most are on membership, right? Like, does that stifle our innovational mindset or not? What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, first, your comments of off script. I'm only off script because I didn't have time to read and all this. But
So I like that.
I figured the questions would be questions we could talk about. Our chats are always fun, so I felt good about that. But look, I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's the membership model. I think it's to me, it's a little bit of a story, right? Like this industry. So the need has always been real. Yeah. And therefore, the ability to count on a certain set of people to partake in whatever was being offered has been there since the start. The need was real enough. So I think the DNA of the whole sector for a long time has been a very push DNA, right? Like build new clubs, make phone calls. We got to get it to people. And that was okay for two reasons. There was a little bit less competition we call it in the first 30, 40 years of this. And the need was strong enough so that even if the solution was not perfect, well, people would come back, right? Like different triggers would say. So that worked. And a membership model made a lot of sense in that. And it still does in many ways. I think what's the challenge is more that DNA needs to evolve a little bit more into I'm using the word push and pull as a contrast, but into more empathy with what is the consumer choice today as they have more alternatives, and how do I keep helping them better? Because our limit, we will have limits as a sector to grow if all we do is all push the same thing together, and then we quickly come into competition one versus another. I think the improving, and we're lucky because the need is so far from being solved, improving how we solve people's needs is what we need to continue to become better at as a sector. So it's more a DNA change that is very much in place, I think, more so than is the membership model, right? I still think in many cases it works.
And do you think that is, if we get that right, whatever that solution is, I know you don't have all the solutions, but whatever that solution is, that change, because, really not many countries are over 20% in terms of gym memberships, where, I think everyone listening to this call would think, why is that? Why isn't everyone participating in our industry? It's so good for them. But like, is that the key kind of thing that we need to do, move from push to pull?
Well, I think so, and I think you're starting to see it. But to be frank, I think there's still a long way to go. And again, the hearts are all good in this industry. People want to make it work, but it's not easy to change culture and DNA like that. So I still think the humility required to be the operators that people need us to be, and the innovators that people need us to be, is still in short supply sometimes. Sure. So you see it in some innovation, right? Some people are finding fundamentally different ways to achieve outcomes, and for certain groups of people, it works, and they go at it. You also see some incumbents, people that already have businesses, try to grow in slightly different ways. So there's a lot of good signs of it. Fitness penetration is not the only way to go, right? It's like, to me, it's like share of people who are living as healthy and as active as they would like. Like that, to me, is the broader thing. Some people are fine running on their own, and that's great, right? Like we'll probably have difficulty. That person's need is solved, and maybe they're happy. But there's a lot of people which are not living as active and happy, so they need us to help them find solutions.
No, I agree. And I think let's talk about, I always have very interesting conversations with you in regards to the market, low, mid, high, and I don't want to put words in the mouth, but what's your thought patterns on how we develop as an industry? Do we see, right now, of course, low cost is low cost operators, high value kind of solutions are definitely kind of winning the game, and then of course luxury is winning as well. So you've got the low end, top end kind of in the winning, the market's getting squeezed, and I think a lot of people are looking at some of their business models trying to stay away from that. Like, what maybe is a better question, what's your view on the mid market? Is it, as an industry evolves like ours, aren't we going to need the mid market in this sector?
Yeah, so I have a lot of perspectives there, and maybe where would I start? So first, like,
question.
No, because it's a very important question, I think, right? So let me try and do this in a logical order. First things first. If you put the world on a PowerPoint page, then yes, you will see, hey, look, lower price point models are growing their share. I think the two big questions under that are, what is the driver of that? And I think in many cases, you see club openings, right? Like especially those who leverage franchising model, they are opening clubs a far greater pace than anybody else. And we all know that like how close is the gym to my house or my work is an important thing, right? So obviously that helps. The second question is the fact that lower price point offerings exist make it impossible for somebody charging a little bit more to succeed, to ramp up a club well, to keep members happy? And that's where I think absolutely not. So when people tell to us like, hey, mid-tier is dead, I'm not sure I agree with that at all, right? Like, so that's kind of the first thought. The second thought, which ties to that, the question of like, is mid-tier dead, is we are looking at one of the most important things, in people's lives. So the idea of imagining that it would be impossible to imagine paying $5, $10, $20, $30, euros, whatever more for something that is helping you move or live as healthy as you want. To me, is complete nonsense, right?
Correct.
So that's kind of the lens number 2. And then the lens number 3 is price is always an interesting way to cut out an environment. I think across categories makes sense. But really, in the end, the other thing that really matters is how does a consumer think about it? What are the different benefits that they are getting out of offerings? Therefore, how do they think about the world? And the different models, different players offering solutions to consumers here deliver on very, very, very different sets of benefits for them. So to me, that like I'll give it. Let's just take the polar opposites here. Like premium clubs, it is not about more rationally better equipment, more space per member, etc. It's actually a full different set of what do I feel when I go to the club? Why am I proud to be at the club? And and a lot of mid-tier operators, the ones who are, in my opinion, quite solid operators, are finding answers, opening clubs, ramping them up very well. Look, long answer, but that's an important question.
Like maybe so if let's say, and it's not really that feasible, I'm trying to find it. Like, so you couldn't do it for a luxury club open at the state that at the same rate that a large, low cost operator or a franchise operator. But let's say a mid-market operator would do that, like with the amount of capital that they require. Do you think they would see the same amount of number growth? Because I guess with your research, and really, really anecdotally when I ran clubs, it was essentially all about being, and we're talking London here, where it was essentially being about 200 meters away from a tube stop. And then that tube stop, you also had to understand where that traffic went. Did they go left or right from the station? And we could actually define how successful it would be. I know that's a very, very, very simple metric. But to your point about club openings, like if a mid-market had the same amount of growth as a low cost, do you think the numbers would be as reflective?
Yeah, look, at a macro view, I think the sector is leaving a lot of money on the table by having such a high share of humans move through models that cost between 10 to 30 euros, $10 to $30 today. Like a big time. And because now I think those models are smart models, because what they look at, they say, it's actually difficult to operate these. Opening clubs matters. Let's simplify the play. Let's create something extremely simple to operate. We will deliver on a promise that is believable. And some people will say, hey, you know what? This is perfect for me. And absolutely. Correct. But I definitely think that with the right operations and with the right value propositions, there's a lot of people who are willing to pay a little bit more for a lot more in terms of getting getting the solution that they desperately look for, or improving what they get when fitness is such an important part of their lives.
And have we gone too low too quickly? Because there's not one boardroom for a low-cost operator talking about how we increase yield. Yield is everything at the moment, right? And so, but it's very hard to increase prices once you put a stake in the ground. It's a lot easier to keep a price and discount rather than go up. And some are successfully doing it. Like Basic-Fit's doing it very well. Good job at doing that. But what's your view on that?
Well, to me, have we gone too low too quickly? The businesses which chose to anchor on that value prop, that is a very fair, and honestly, the models are working. So very smart decision and so on. I think the incumbents reacted very, very kind of, let's lower prices, let's match this, rather than understanding, is there anything different about us? Could we offer anything different? And is that better suited to our skills, to our existing member base, and to our cost structure? So I think that this is where the creativity to step our game up, rather than being very, very rational. Like it's a very rational place, right? Like how many amenities to price. Oh my God, but I don't have new robes. So how do I do this, etc. It's like it's so rational as of a sector. So that response, and for some people it has worked. So this is not a generalized statement, but that response to me has not been sufficiently creative and roll up the sleeves to figure out how we keep getting better. I think that's the part which I've been surprised at how many people have gone to, well, we need to cut price.
Yeah, okay, fair. All right, I'm going to leave you alone on that one. And considering this is as a technology podcast, I better start asking some tech questions. So, for you, like what are in terms of emerging data insights and technological advancements? What are the things that you're seeing are shaping the industry today?
Yeah, look, this is probably again, and this is where working across consumer sectors can help. Like, my sense is this is one of the sectors for which information and technology can have most impact on overall value
Mm,
creation and overall member solutions, for two reasons. We get a lot of information at high
yeah,
frequency, and it's intimate information, right? It's not
yeah,
credit card equals purchase of a water
no,
bottle here. It's actually human being chose to come for this place for that duration of time, engage. Like, it is very, very intimate clues.
yeah.
So that's number one. There's a lot of information that we get on the people who choose to associate with each
Are
of
we
us.
using? Are you as again? Everything's macro, but like have you got examples of where operators are using that for the benefit? Because I feel like, to your point, we've got so much data, and that a lot of people don't know how to decipher it to actually create action.
So few people are even using it, and even fewer in
Yeah,
my mind are using it to the potential that it could be. And
yeah,
often I find a impediment to that is people are thinking that the first solution needs to be the all in, and they start convincing
mm,
themselves they got to go all bunch of virtual solutions, that they need a bunch of back end
yeah.
solutions. Often the things that work are not necessarily the sexiest. Like, they wouldn't make it on
No,
the cover of a technology and innovation magazine, but they would
no.
definitely make it as the front speaker in terms of how did I change my fitness business
Correct.
magazine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I know
um,
one of the most successful clubs in the world still just run off an Excel sales funnel.
mhm,
Because they've got all this technology, but they put it all back in Excel so they can actually see it. And I would say he's probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry. It's
yeah.
hilarious.
And to go back to your question of what are these people doing, like, to me,
Yeah,
divide very much into two things. One is um, acquiring consumers is a pretty special thing in this industry. It's difficult because it's not just about who they are and all. It's about when is the right moment. When are they
mm,
actually considering this? And there are ways to get clues. So we've seen massive impact for those who have chosen to improve their marketing practices by using a little bit of information in the technology that's available.
mm,
More interestingly, because this, of course, is a competitive game, how do we do it? But more interestingly is improving the outcomes and therefore your lifetime value as a result of it. So
yeah,
retention, the likelihood of somebody buying a premium membership that we have, in some cases upsell, etc. So
mm,
meaningfully improving outcomes and lifetime value. This is where we've seen more exciting
yeah,
value creation stories. Again, too few in my opinion compared to how
mm,
much potential there is, and not necessarily the most sophisticated stuff. Basic,
mm.
well operated, slight cultural change in the business of how we use info to keep improving, massive impact.
Yeah. And then, and in regards, so what's your view on the kind of future of hybrid in terms of, I guess being relevant to members 24/7 rather than just offering that hour fitness experience if that's all they're doing?
So I think the consumer decides that, and the
Yeah.
consumer has decided that I will move in different ways. They were like just a bit less than half of the people who were moving with gyms or studios were already
Mm-hmm.
moving in many different ways before the pandemic. Now
Yeah.
that's grown quite a bit, and that's just fantastic because, I mean, the real competitor in this industry is human indiscipline or people giving up. And you can see that people having more than one different option to move actually helps them be more accountable
Mm-hmm.
to themselves in moving, and so they keep moving. So this is
Yes.
all the good news part. So they have chosen that they will move in different ways. Sometimes
Mm.
it involves virtual mediums, and also that's
Yeah.
perfect. I think the question to ask is, like, do we actually need to accompany them across all of these or not? And for
Mm-hmm.
most of the businesses, I think the answer is no. So that's
Mm.
where sometimes we fall into the trap. It's not because the person is moving at home that we need to be their selection to move
Yeah.
at home if we are in the business of giving them a place to come lift weights.
Correct.
So that's a little bit like you see some low ROI investments out as everything out of a good heart, because people,
Yes.
this started in COVID of like, my God, I got to keep helping these people. Let's go. Like, this
Yeah.
is one of the most
Yeah.
inspirational sector responses in the pandemic. Um, but yeah, I don't think the consumer will move in different ways, including at
Yeah.
home. It is fantastic news for the sector. Not everybody needs to be
Yeah.
fighting to move to have them move at home.
And your advice to making that decision, because we sit on the fence of doing that, and I completely agree with you, because some people do it as a knee-jerk reaction of kind of like what you said about low price. Like if the operator down the street has started to create content and produce and has a platform, then they need to go do it, rather than actually thinking it through, like in terms of, is this, do I need to be relevant to my customer 24/7? Yes, no, this is the part that I play, and this is the part I play well. Like, do you think there needs to be more definitions in that space before heading into a hybrid journey?
Well, I think to answer the first question there, like the advice to make the right choices, frankly, I think it's just making sure we're asking ourselves the right questions. And they're two different. The first group is on your existing business. What is my value prop today? Is it as clear and relevant as it needs to be to today's consumer? And do I feel good there? And then if not, how do I keep improving my ability to deliver on that? And sometimes digital mediums will be a part of that. So that's the first set of questions. And the second one is, are there other unmet needs? Are there other things I could do? And then importantly, if the answer is yes, have I found the business model and the differential of why I will be the best or one of the best at delivering this? If not, perhaps it will be difficult for me to choose to play there. So it's really, I know this is high level and conceptual, but it's the questions to ask ourselves, because again, it comes back to us being excited about the sector. If we go straight into that exists, we got to do it, man, this is super cool. That's when we fall into business traps.
We I don't think it's live yet, but we had Tiago from SmartFit on there, and they're making $48 million for digital. But what they realized, and again, I don't know how they went through the decision making on the podcast. They actually went through the decision making process of what they did, and what they realized is that actually by including everyone and connecting it to the gym, we're just going to find more roadblocks. It's actually going to cause more hassle than good. So when they actually created a completely separate product and ran it as a separate business to be able to get it. And not everyone will do that. Like I know the likes of RSG Group and Basic Fit is very intertwined to their overall offering in terms of digital. But they went completely separate. To actually my my advice was not to do that, but they've succeeded more than probably anyone by actually creating it as a separate business with separate, because they said the skill set of the sector doesn't correlate. So like the person that's running the group exercise experience physically doesn't run a good group exercise experience digitally, and you can't have it's the two brains that need to work differently. So interesting viewpoint. But to your point about where do we win it, or how do we actually manage to do well in this space to add value? They realized that actually doing it comes something completely separate. What they did do, which I again find quite interesting, is that they took, because they already had the database, they could reduce their CAC by going, because CAC is the major issue for all the digital fitness. And so they reduced their CAC by still using their databases that they had to go do it. So a good example.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So then let's talk, like, what do you feel are our, I don't know, what is it, paradigm shifts that the industry needs to take? You're very engaged with EHFF and Fit Summit, like talking to operators. What are the changes that you think from a macro point of view that we need to move to grow more, or are we missing opportunities, I guess?
Well, I think so. The few I've already alluded to, but to go back to them, right? Number one is from push to pull. Like we will have difficulty to all grow if we're all trying to just push out the solution of yesterday out there and all of this. So and what that means to me is empathizing with the end user. And the simple question is our business absolutely obsessed about the end user, yes or no? And so that to me is kind of the first one. I think the second one, which I was alluding to a little bit as well, is them pushing through business models quite a bit. So I think, and this is in a very competitive environment, like, do we have a business model which holds the road under tougher waters than maybe on the day that we consider it? And do we actually have a true competitive edge? This is not a winner-take-all market, but it is becoming may the leaders take most. So are we going to be one of the top three? It's not great to be in a business and be in the top 7, right? Like, so that to me is the second one. And I think the third one, and this is where a little bit the information and digital medium comes in, it's we need to keep improving our skills as operators. Now, that'll probably shock a lot of people listening to the call because, hey, man, that's what actually we do. We open clubs, they're on time, they're clean and all this stuff. But I think there's a next step because this is a sector which is proud and good operators. But let's define operators by giving members what they're actually delivering on our promise as we made it to them on day one. And this is where I think there's a level 2 for the sector. This is where I think information is required to help us continue to make better decisions. So those 3 things to me, from push to pull, let's put the new hats on when it comes to business model stress testing because our space has become more competitive, and operator skills 2.0, and that includes information and new mediums.
I love that, and you know, I know a lot of people listen to this around the world, and they'll go, but it's different in my region. Like, do you find differences in the regions, or is that just a fallacy?
Look, I've actually been quite lucky to work. The only even in Africa, a little bit, like, we've worked so much everywhere, and I think that these 3 things are true everywhere. What is different in every region is what are consumer preferences, exactly where they at in their journey and so on. But the solutions they seek, not in terms of the modality to move, but the overcoming of indiscipline, the motivation to move, the not feeling intimidated, all of these things are similar. The 3 not fallacies, but the 3 step changes I think are applicable pretty much everywhere. So I don't. Yes, regions are different, absolutely, and for their competitive intensity and consumer nuances. But yeah, I think those 3 opportunities ring true in every geography.
I agree. And look, probably you just recently, I think, launched a defining moment for leaders in health and fitness in regards to, and talking about the emerging markets in terms of China and India. Like, what maybe give us some insight into that for people that haven't read.
Well, look, I think there are many places in the world where the innovation and the expansion and solutions for people is not where it is in other parts, like mostly in Europe and North America. So it's actually an opportunity for the sector overall to say, hey, could we do a better job at offering them solutions? Of course, there are nuances and preferences and got to adapt. And I do think it's a real opportunity for some existing businesses to consider, because while understanding the consumers, again, this is a bit from the push to the pull. If we just push a replication of everything the same, in some cases it'll work, in others not. But often we bring skills to the table, right? An experience of what are we actually good at as a business? So while we might have to tweak the exact model, like what exactly we are offering to people, the skills we have built over the last 20, 25, 30, 35 years are probably a good advantage to get in and say, well, how can I help people in geography X achieve their health outcomes? So I do think it's an opportunity. I do think there's many attractive geographies for the population size that are still quite underserved today in terms of number of people trying to give them solutions that might work.
Yeah. And do you see, well, I guess, crystal ball, do you see that being an operator that's completely controlled, like a Basic Fit or something, or do you see more of a franchise model doing well in those China and India models? Because I know there's those businesses in there now, but I don't know, no one's got the full traction yet.
I think there's definitely room for both. I think franchise allows for the speed of servicing a market which is underserved and opening locations. And look at a lot of these models actually have a nice solution. I think those who will put the finger on how to correctly create as much value as we can from each relationship, because we're actually servicing their outcomes as good as we can, are likely to be a bit closer to that person. Or maybe it's a very creative franchise model, but today I've seen people who own their operations be best at doing this.
Yeah, no, I get that. I agree. A lot of things I agree with you, Eric. But let's move it to digital transformation. I guess impact of AI and how you see that playing out. Like, I know you've got those 3 bits of advice. Do operators need to be engaging with AI a little bit more than they are today, or is it more fast follow once we see someone actually adopting AI technology? From a sophisticated point of view, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think absolutely, and it's but it's, how can I say, like, to bring it back to an analogy of somebody that wants to to start training or whatever. Like the starting point, and that's why I use simple terms like the information and technology. Like the starting point is one of understanding where is their most potential and changing how we as a team operate. What we see, we do a lot of these digital transformations with clients and they work well, but it's, to me, it's when you get the realization by everybody that this doesn't need to be an intimidating, sophisticated, weird game that feels different. It actually, success gets quite addictive. It's like, well, I can totally understand that change. Wow, why don't we do something else here? So it's so yes, I think AI is enabling a lot on the marketing front, but even on the engagement as well. Like it enables things that would be impossible to do without it. But it's not. It doesn't need to feel like a foreign game that's so different to what we do today. Like step by step, commit to leveraging information and digital mediums to improve how you operate as a team. Focus on the places where there's most impact, and this is the same for all consumer sectors, right? Like we have the chance to work with clients across these.
To me, it's just going to be you're going to have more power to understand the customer more. So therefore, you're going to should be able to change their behavior. If you know more about their searches and what their likes and dislikes are, which they're usually happy to give you, if you know to be able to help them, then we're going to be in a better state, right? In terms of as these AI models improve.
Yeah, exactly. And look, so I accompany these transformations. I am not our experts when it comes to this, right? Of course, we like to build the right teams to come help clients. So we have folks that are 100% specialized in this, both in previous experience and at McKinsey. So we form the right teams to then come and help our clients. But it's without a doubt there is a role for this, a massive role of increased value creation for the overall sector here.
And what's your, I know this is a very new trend, but it's starting to become spoken about in the circles a little bit more in regards to like opposemic and, you know, once they create, digestible pills, how much does that affect our industry? I think all the research I've seen essentially is they need to do exercise with taking these weight loss pills. But like, what's your thoughts on there without putting words in your mouth?
Zero's perspectives on the science here. I've probably read the same reports that you have read and so on. So I cannot opine on the effectiveness of existing solutions and on. I think there's a group of folks for which the very predominant benefit that they use our solutions for is weight loss. And that as long as that goal is met, all good. So if there's a simpler way to meet that goal, I do think it creates a risk of some folks finding a solution if these things pan out of like, well, look, so on. The good news, which is happening all over the world, is that people's understanding of the role of an active and healthy lifestyle into being a better human overall, much more holistic way than, hey, not being being the weight that they would want to be. And even that being part of their identity, right? And being proud of it, like that's changing. And that to me is a fantastic news because while there might be different solutions for many consumers or for many users of many people who move today, it's too important part of their life to find a suboptimal alternative.
Great. Well, and like everything I've seen, because you know it came up in one thing that I think they did a study of what could kill the industry or kill us, and it was, of course, it came up weight loss pills. But you know, again, all I've seen in terms of the studies is actually as soon as they start taking them, they exercise more, they look for healthier alternatives. They actually change their lifestyle by taking the pill, which again is going to be engaging with our facilities more and more, right? Or with our solutions with the industry. So in a way, I think it's actually possibly a positive thing for our industry if people have these options. If they need to take a pill to start to change the behavior, then great.
Yeah, look, and this is where, like, let's see, right? I have definitely not a qualified opinion for this, but you're describing a behavior you often see, right? It gets addictive to take care of yourself. We see it in somebody who starts to move, right? It quickly becomes exciting to talk about. All of a sudden, they start eating better. They don't really know why, but they feel so. It's rapidly positive reinforcing mechanism. So it could be that something like this would play out.
Compounds, yeah. And then I guess I've got to ask you one COVID question. I promise you it's the last one. So I guess what were your how much to you, looking at all the other different industries? You mentioned that our response was very good during COVID, but how much has the industry changed since COVID? Like what's been the highlights for you?
Yeah, well, the short is it hasn't changed enough. So that's my perspective. Where I go a lot of the times when I hear groups. Actually, when I talk to businesses one by one, they are more critical about themselves. Of like, hey, the times are tough. We got to figure out a way. Like we don't feel we're doing what we should be. When the industry talks as a group, it talks about how much it's evolved. In my sense, it hasn't evolved enough. So breaking that down a little bit, the initial response was the most inspirational that I've seen across every single sector. Yeah, fine. Some people sent out some little pictures saying, "We love you, hope you're well at home." But this sector rolled up their sleeves, started innovating in a way they had never done. Of course, part of it was like, hey, maybe we need a new revenue stream. But a lot of it was like, damn, we got to follow our members. They're at home. So the most inspirational response, other than healthcare workers and everybody that was helping us go through this tough time, to me, goes to this sector. Like, it was beautiful to see. So that's kind of step one. The second thing that happened is a lot of people started innovating in alternative models. So the competition increased quite a bit initially. And then the last thing, which to me is the part that hasn't evolved enough, is two of the questions we've been discussing of like, in a movement routine or in a health routine that has changed, what is our value proposition today? It's not a polar opposite than it was yesterday, but it has evolved. And have we adjusted to deliver on that better than anybody in the world? Like that, not enough. And number two, in a more competitive world, how do we become better operators and make a few decisions differently and better? Like that, I'm not sure. Like there are very few people moving at the pace which we think is needed to be like in this may the leaders take most, not winner take all, but leaders take most market. And that's what I think. If people are honest enough with themselves in most businesses, I think it's time to change how we do things a little bit.
And was that the lead? Because it feels to me, and again, I've got no stats that you might be able to back me up. It feels to me that the leaders take most has actually been amplified since COVID. Those ones have come out a little bit stronger than the rest. Is that a fair assumption?
I think so. So. There's so much more competition too, right? So like. I think so. I think you're seeing some groups taking the invitation a little bit more seriously, changing how few decisions are done, really doubling down, and I think, like winning their share.
And your expectation was there should have been more evolution of how we deliver that value to the customer after COVID, which really didn't happen. So therefore, it defaulted back to the leaders that were before COVID just have taken more after COVID.
I think so. And the biggest caveat in the world, it's I own a grand total of 0 gyms, 0 studios, 0 aggregators, etc. So like it's so easy to be the person outside saying, hey, but like I know the teams enough to know that the desire, the will, the creativity is there. This is a very difficult environment. There are very difficult realities, business realities. So there's a thousand reasons why it's not easy. But unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a must in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. To be where we need to be relevant in this more competitive space.
Yeah. Look, Eric, I think I'm going to leave it there, to be honest. For me, I was going to usually ask the 3 takeaways, but I think you've been real clear with those 3 takeaways. I think the input's been amazing. And to be from me to you, thank you for everything you do for our industry as well. Like, the fact that we actually getting, macro view reports, you're getting more intertwined with our operators to give us views from other industries. Thank you, my friend.
No, thank you. This is a club by club and member by member industry. So for us to have the chance to be closer to the operators is an absolute must if we're going to try and help in some way. So it's always a pleasure to do this. And thanks for the chat. This was really nice.
Right. No, awesome. And look, anyone that hasn't engaged with Eric, I recommend you do. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I've always enjoyed these chats. So it's good to get one on the podcast, so everyone can hear our off-ball chats, Eric. And then, how does anyone get in contact with you? What's the best way?
I think the best way is email. So I don't know what the best way to share my email is, but that would be the best.
We'll put a link or post, or we'll do something. The marketing team will do something, I'm sure. So, but I heavily recommend getting insights from Eric and engaging with McKinsey in their studies as much as possible. So, Eric, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for jumping on the podcast, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Very nice talking.
Cheers, Eric. Bye.
Cheers.